Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket eights from the small blind. In this hand, we have under the gun raises 3.4, and it's folded around to me. This villain's playing 28-18. I only have 60 hands on him. I thought, oh, this is going to be a reasonable range. And then I look at his raise first in stat, and it's 36%, but it's 5 out of 14. If we look at his VPIP, it's 5 out of 15 in early position. With these few hands, it is entirely possible that the deck is just hitting him hard. And I kind of base that on the fact that the medium position or mid position is lower. Cutoff's fairly high at a 3 out of 6, but buttons drop down to 2 out of 7. Small blind, big blind, not overly loose. So, if we just went with like 35, 36% hand, we're looking at something like this. And I just don't think that's reasonable. Not for like a 25 NL game, and not for someone who's under the gun. So, maybe he is looser. Maybe he is playing wider than what a lot of people play, but 30% is just really high. So even for under the gun, you kind of have to look at, a lot of players don't play, a huge number of hands. First act, they tend to tighten up more. But then you also have those other people who tend to play a lot under the gun to take advantage of that type of image. I've encountered some of those players. Do I know what kind of player this is? No, I don't. So, at 22%, we're looking at something like this. I think he probably could have broadways, both suited and unsuited. Probably has all his pocket pairs, maybe the suited connectors. I think this is all we can go off of. It was a larger size, 3.4, but again, it's possible that he's just taking advantage of the image that a lot of people have, that under the gun players are super tight. So we're gonna go with this range. Now, what about us? Pocket eights is a potential 3-betting hand. When we look at hand charts, you've got your standard 3-bet, and then you've got a 3-better call. So eights is definitely in there. I kind of assume that this player is raising fairly widely. So this could be a spot where we could 3-bet light, 3-bet bluff, and expect him to fold. However, when we look at his fold to 3-bet stat after a raise, it's 0 out of 2. He is not folded to a 3-bet after he raised. So I think this is a hand eights. I don't really think we want to make it into a bluff, because if we 3-bet here and he 4-bets, I think we're going to probably have to let it go. So, but at the same time, eights is a pretty decent hand. It's a pair. Villain 2 is probably not going to be flopping pairs all that often. So I don't think I think there's value here in calling. Moreover, when we think about the hands that are going to come, if we raise and build a pot and he calls, their 9s to aces can come and really just hurt our hand. It's going to be hard for us to play this out of position in a bigger pot. So I think a call is probably in order, and I think we're probably going to be doing a call with most of our range here. Maybe we could play like ace jack king queen, but until we kind of figure out how wide a range under the gun range he's actually playing, I think I'd probably lean towards calling. I think the other aspect of that's pushing me towards call is the size of this open. You don't typically see opens for larger than 3 big blinds, so this is, I don't know, to me it's a little suspicious. So I did just call. And then villain 1 calls. He's playing 42-11. He is definitely a loose player, like a loose passive. We have 46 hands on him. Not a huge number, but enough to suggest that he is playing loose. Pre-flop, he's called 2 bets 25% of the time. I just don't think he's really been in that situation a whole lot. And it's possible that those other times that he's in the big blind, it's not just a 2-bet pot, it's a 3-bet pot, and he just lets it go. So for a player like this, a loose passive, I'm going to say he's probably calling with like a pocket pair, some of these broadways, maybe suited connectors. And, if we see his hand, then we can always revise it. So we could say, when we say call 2-bets from blinds range, queen 9, 10, 6, 10, 9, 7, 6 offsuit. Actually, he is playing fairly wide. So I must have played with this guy before, maybe at a 10 NL game, and this is 25 NL. We don't know. Maybe he plays a little bit differently at the higher levels. We'll just go with our ranges. So flop comes down 9-7-7. This is definitely a board that I think favors us. Favors the callers, anyways. 2 hearts on the board. Villain 2's probably missed it. And it's definitely going to be a scary board. We block 8s, so we block the open-ended, a straight draw. Do we lead? No, I don't think so. I think we check and let villain lead out. Oh, and apparently this is our second hand at the table too. So we do check. Villain 1 checks. I think villain 1's probably going to be checking his entire range as well. Villain 2 leads, bet 6.28, so maybe 2/3 pot here. Do I think he's going to be betting 2/3 pot with everything? Well, right now he's c-bet in position and out of position 100% of the time. So I'm just going to say he's doing it with 100% of his range. Is this a check raising range? I don't think so. With that third person in the pot, we could definitely check raise here and probably force villain 1 out. But like I said, this board type really favors the callers. We might be behind equity-wise, but if we check raise and villain 1 comes along, I think we're in a low to hurt. So I think what we could do is kind of keep it small, call here, because I think villain 1, if he has anything, he'll call this bet, and he would also call the check raise. Whereas if he doesn't have anything, he's not only folding to the check raise, but he's also folding to this size bet. So I think there's going to be a little less risk for us if we just call here and plan to then either lead or check raise on the turn. I think might be the better play. So what kind of hands are we going to be doing this with? I don't think we check raise quads. I think we call and slow play there. I don't think we check raise a full house. I think we slow play quads in the full house. Let's get that done. So those are going to be calls. We can check raise 3 of a kind. And the reason I say quads in full house is that we just hammer the board. There's going to be very little for any of these players to have. Obviously, villain 2 could have a pocket pair, an over pair, and he would possibly be able to call. However, at like 25 NL, or I just think at micro stakes, a check raise tends to indicate a big hand. So, I think 3 of a kind, over pair. I think a top pair is a call. So 3 of a kind, over pairs. Flush draws, I think, are going to be our nut flush draws. Let's get those in there. I think these non-nut flushes, I don't think we're going to be check raising. I will say, I think 10-8, open-ended, might be a suitable check raise. So we still have just a lot. Hold on. Yeah, because we had the open-ender in there. Let's check our counts. So we've got 18 combos, 3 pair and over pair. We've got 9 combos of our flush draw. We're probably a little too value heavy. So maybe if we get rid of our over pairs and just convert those to a call, those would probably be a little bit better. I think definitely we want a polarized range here. Not so, yeah, 3 of a kind, 6 to 9. I think that's going to be our check raising range. And then this leaves, and since we don't have that, this leaves our calling range here. So if we're not going to call, if we're not check raising with the overpairs, then we're going to be calling with, them. We're going to be calling with our top pair. I think we're going to be calling with these 8s, the pocket pair below the board. I think we can go kind of see what plays out. Our flush draws, we are going to be calling with those. With our open enders, minus the 10-8 of hearts. I think that's going to be check raise. I think we can call with a gut shot. Overcards are probably just check those. So, all right. So I'm not sure if we call with all of these overcards. I think our breakdown 64-17. 64 includes these weaker cards too. I don't think it's worthwhile. I think the overcards, if we catch one, we do have to be concerned that we're going to be dominated. So I think it's probably best just to not worry about it. So call with that. We said he's 100%, and what's the next guy do? He folds, so he could have any of these cards, maybe even a lower pocket pair. So it is now heads up to the turn. 10 of hearts. All right, so we improved to open-ended straight draw. We don't have a heart. So I think that's interesting, to say the least, and we have to continue thinking about our hand and how we're going to proceed. So with this hand, with the 10 of hearts, we can lead out, bet, or we can go for a check raise. I think the play here, and I think this was a mistake on my part, is to go ahead and lead out here with our 8. I think the heart's going to cause problems. I think if villain raises us, we could probably just fold. I think check raising, always a possibility that if we check villain 2 bets something, let's say 20, it's going to make us check raise to upwards of 60, and that's going to be 2/3 of our stack at that point. It probably would just make more sense to check raise all in, and that's pretty. I think that's a pretty crazy bluff, because if we think about hands that villain would call with, he might call with a lone queen. Let's say queen jack with the jack of hearts or the queen of hearts or something like that. Open-ended straight draw. We're still ahead, but these got pretty darn good equity for that. Do I think he would raise my bet? If I lead here, do I think he would raise with those types of hands? Tough to say. Again, we only have 60 hands, but I think that's a doable play. I kind of think, let's go back to here. I kind of think, now we have that hand. I think we can lead with our quads, with our full house, with our flush. I think with our over pairs are probably going to be just checking. The 10-9 are checking top pair. Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at. So let's get this. Well, we don't have any of those. Open ender. Yeah, I think our flush draws, our weak flush draws, I think we're probably just calling those with the check. So I think this is our betting range. And I think this is probably better than check raising. I think planning for a check raise, we're going to lose out on some value with all of these. But if we lead, there's a possibility that villain might call with that lone heart, where I'd say would check behind. So I kind of actually like my bet here. How much are we going to lead? I think we're going to have to lead at least 18. I'd say 18 up to a pot size bet. I think that's what we should do. So I didn't. I checked. So I think that was a mistake, and that means then we're probably checking all of these. Yeah, let's X those out. We don't want any of those. Okay, so we got middle pair. And then I don't think we're doing pocket pair less than the board. I just think we've well, hold on, no, because we're checking. So we got all the rest. That's what we're looking at as a check range. And then villain checks too. So we've got our checking range. Villain checks behind. I don't think he's going to be checking full houses. I don't think he's going to be checking the flushes. It's possibility that he checks three of a kind. Yeah, I think it's a possibility he's checking all of those because he's scared of the flush. Do I think he has the nut flush draw? No, I kind of think he probably would have bet. And I'm going to say even with the second nut flush draw, he probably would have bet. But the third nut's probably not. So I think we're going to go with that, with this range for his checking range. So you can see we're about even right now. And then the river's a 7 of diamonds. I think because we checked it, I think our play is just going to really be to check call here. I think we missed our opportunity to bet. So I think we check, and I think we check with everything, with 100% of our range. Even with the full house, we're going to hope that villain decides just to come along and call. So we check and villain 2 checks. What kind of things does villain 2 check? Yeah, he's probably checking behind as well. Definitely if he has a full house, he's going to be worried about some of the weaker full houses here. I think he probably makes a mistake. I think he should have gone for some value here with any of his overpairs. But, you know, we'll see what happens. So we do get to the showdown, and he shows Jack 9. I didn't have Jack 9 in his range here. But I think it is definitely a possibility that he has that type of hand. So we're looking at, let's say, top pair. Well, it's a full house now. So any of these top pair hands, so the 10-9. Why? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So he could have it. He could have a second pair with the 9s. I think if he had Jack 9, he's definitely calling. The question is, if we lead that turn, what does he do? I think if he leads the turn, or if we lead the turn and he calls, I think with our hand is we're going to have to lead again. I don't think it's going to be a check down. I think if we check, so we're going to go back to the turn. Let's say we bet 20, he calls. All right, so now we've got a 63 big blind pot. And then at that point, I think we're just going to have to dump it in as a bluff. I think when he gets there with his, if he calls here, he's calling probably his flush draws as well. Possibly straight draw, but I think we're going to target some of these lower cards. We're going to hope that he folds. He's obviously not going to fold 3 of a kind. He's obviously not going to fold 3 of a kind, I don't think, but he might be able to get him off of flush because he's afraid that we have full house. I mean, who knows? But all right, so hopefully you could see this hand. I think I made the mistake by not leading the turn. I don't even like a check raise on the turn at this point. I think that 10 of hearts was not that great for us. I mean, it improved our hand, but and it helped us get to the river, but I think we missed out on our lead. I think would be a really good spot to lead against a player that's probably c-betting 100% of his range and is capable of calling with that lone heart and then folding to a river. All right, hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another.